We're standing in what was the midnight fire of 2022. My name is Angie Krall. I'm the Deputy District Ranger on the west zone of the Carson National Forest. We're standing above Potrero Canyon. We're standing on the ancestral land of the indigenous Tewa, Apache, Hickory Apache Ute peoples, and also we are standing on the Jose Lavato land grant land, later to become Forest Service land. Since that time, we've had 100 years of fire suppression. So a lightning strike occurred in the Potrero Canyon here, where it often does, in mid-June. And we knew that it could be off to the races.
We arrived kind of in this area around, I'd say about 10:30, 11-ish p.m. We kind of got our thoughts together to try to find where this fire was at. My name is Chris Farrar. At the time of the midnight fire, I was the FEO on the Rio Ranger District, the Type 6 engine. I was born and raised in northern New Mexico, and I've also had a big part to play in a lot of the prescribed and managed fires we've had on this landscape. Started hiked down to the hill of the fire. At that point, we were seeing moderate fire behavior. Ended up hiking back, got back to the vehicles about 3 in the morning. When we left it that morning, it was about 7 acres. When we got back to it, it was pushing about 60 to 70 acres, with moderate to extreme fire behavior at that point.
Right about then is when you knew, like, this is gonna be bigger, way bigger.
I knew since that first day.
Yeah, you're like, just from the fired behavior.
Yeah, once I saw the 2 heads on it.
My grandfather, Victor Ortega, he homesteaded that land, the Valle Grande property, in 1920. He was working with the U.S. Forest Service, I presume, starting about 1914, maybe. We were keeping very, very close eye on a midnight fire because we knew exactly where it was located. And in fact, 2 of my nephews and my son were keeping tabs with the Forest Service offices there in El Rito and wanting to know if there was anything that we could do at the ranch to be able to assist and possibly open the ranch up to using it as a base camp.
At the time that the midnight fire started, it was very dry conditions. The winds were raging directly at Vallecitos. I was on the way to Colorado with my family. We heard that the fires were happening. We turned around and came back, and we're just kind of preparing for the worst. My name is Olin Christie. I'm the district fire chief for the Vallecitos Volunteer Fire Department. I'm also a community member in La Madera, which is just south of Vallecitos. We were on a set status for evacuation, and we were just trying to keep people calm to make sure that if evacuation did happen, everyone was prepared for it, but also kind of cautiously optimistic that the prescribed burns were going to hold.
Prior to the midnight fire starting, we had a couple of noteworthy projects that were completed in the landscape. My name is George Alalunas. I'm a prescribed fire and fuels technician on the west zone of the Carson National Forest. We had the Alamosa RX in 2014. We had another units in the Alamosa RX completed in 2018, as well as the Francisquito managed wildfire that happened in 2019. And the intention for those projects was to help make a catcher's mitt on the landscape, to help protect communities like Vallecitos, as well as private land in holdings.
We have the Francisquito all through here, and this is kind of the area I went in through. And so when the fire hit this, we were able to, like I say, it went from 100-foot, 300-foot flames to 2-3-foot flames in a matter of, minutes, just because of the fuel treatments there. Like here we have the midnight fire where you can see red needles, higher burn scorches on the trees. And then you come over the road to where the Francisquito fire was, you don't see as high burn scars or red needles due to the fact of the fuel treatments that were placed in there.
So when the fire hit these treatment areas and it was able to go from a high intensity fire to a low to moderate intensity fire, that allowed firefighters on the ground to engage safely and put a stop to this fire. I'm Joe Carrillo. I work for New Mexico State Forestry Division out of the Chama District. The fact that we had treatments conducted over a number of years prior to this fire season, that's what stopped the fire.
As an agency administrator within the Forest Service, as a district ranger, I've had to really learn about fire ecology and tactics from my fire and fuel staff. In 2017, we had the Bonita managed fire, which actually was one that burned a little higher severity than we wanted it to. And we did impact a surface water system in the village of Vallecitos. They took some time to come back from that, and that meant we also had to rebuild our social license there in Vallecitos. So when we wanted to burn again in one of the Alamosa units, we had community meetings. We really gathered with people. We talked one-on-one with the volunteer fire department, with the chief.
So a lot of my community members, neighbors, we all depend on the forest that's around us, the watershed for clean water, whether it's for livestock or our personal use. And really we all are out here because we love the wild portions of northern New Mexico, and the forest is a huge part of that.
It is imperative that Forest Service work closely with communities, keep them well informed of programs and activities that are going on and plans that they have, and really be truthful and transparent in terms of the risk factors associated with them.
Moving forward, I think some of the things that I'd like to see in our community is people kind of being engaged on a level of fire preparedness, and even put in my plug for the volunteer department. You know, join a local fire department. Be ready to help your neighbors when the time comes.
You know, how I see fire management in the future, it looks similar to what we've already successfully implemented here, where we have strategic projects at a landscape scale that are making the forest more resilient, where it's not only just reducing, you know, high fire severity, but we have other, you know, natural resource benefits that are coming out of that.
In 2022, we have a whole new 10-year strategy ahead of us in the Forest Service, where we're getting lots of resources to do more on the landscape, thinning and burning. What our future is looking like is more of a year-round forest, prescribed burning crews, folks that really start to be part of prescribed burning and thinning crews, that's what they do. They're not just hotshots working really hard all season long with sometimes not a lot to give in the fall. You know, we've raised firefighter wages. We're bringing in a lot more permanent full-time people, because what we all know is the fire season is now year-long in many cases in different parts of the country. So we have to build an organization of not just people who can throw a tool, but really understand planning and mapping and fire ecology, the whole package, to get out in front of it, to be proactive, not always so reactive.